Hey folks, Derek Q. Sanders here. I have another good question tonight asked by one of my social media friends and or followers. Her question was, she asked about husbands being the head of their households, but what she wanted to know was how does that relate to dating? How does that relate to dating? And of course, we know that a scripture that says that wives are to submit to their husbands. Let me elaborate on that for a second. Scripture says that that's been the source of a lot of controversy. It's been removed from wedding vows by some brides have had that removed, and it's been abused. It's been abused where you have men hammering that into women that they're supposed to submit, which the scripture does tell them that. But the scriptures also give instructions to husbands as well. And one of the examples is scripture said that husbands are to love their wives like Christ loved the church and gave himself for it, which is a very, very high bar. Christ died for the church. So husbands are supposed to act toward their wives like Christ acted toward his bride, and he gave himself for his bride. And I think most women, when their, or most wives, when their husband is acting as Christ did toward her, like Christ did toward the church, that's a different response than a man just lording over a woman and saying, you have to obey me. All right. So, like, again, that's in the context of a marriage, husband and wife. What the young lady asked me was, how does this relate to dating? Which is a very, very good question because I've seen it. Maybe some of you have seen it as well, where you see some of the dialogue on social media where there's a discussion about dating and it comes up about submission. And I've seen ladies where they say, "Look, I don't have a problem submitting to my boyfriend or to my man, this, that, and the other thing." And when I see that, it's good in one sense that a woman has no problem with the leadership of a man. The only problem is that where that came from, it was specifically talking about husbands and wives. In a dating relationship, we're not married, and a woman is not obligated to submit to a man that she's dating. He's not her husband. She's not obligated to that any more than a man who's dating a woman is obligated to pay her bills or things like that. You're not married, and there should be a clear distinction between a dating relationship and a marriage. And more importantly, in context to this particular subject, what a woman should know is when you're dating, you are not. This is not your husband. This Joker ain't your husband, and you're not under any obligation to obey him. If a man wants to know a woman's character, if he wants to know her willingness to submit to leadership and things of that nature, then what he needs to be doing is paying attention to her relationship to God. Does she submit to God? Because in a sense, he will be playing the role of leader and protector. Of course, he won't be replacing God, but he will be acting in a role that God has designed for husbands, for men, which is similar to the role, his role, which is why Scripture said that husbands should love their wives like Christ loved the church. You see the parallel between Christ and his bride and a husband and his bride. But that's in a marriage, not in a dating relationship. And often it gets twisted where brothers want to have the same rights and responsibilities as husbands, and you're not a husband. You have no rights to her body. You have no rights to control her. No, well, actually, a husband doesn't have rights to control, but he doesn't have any rights to her body. You don't have any rights to her submitting to you. She's not your wife, and it's not necessary in a dating relationship to determine your compatibility anymore, as I mentioned before, than it's necessary to determine your compatibility by a man acting as a husband and paying bills or things like that. Those things are not necessary. So, again, in a relationship, in a dating relationship, you're not obligated to submit to a man. He's not your head. He's not your leader. And a woman should be able to look at a man and determine his ability to lead just by looking at his character, seeing how he manages the affairs of his life. And actually, both of you should be doing that. The man should be looking at the woman and seeing how she manages her life, how she manages her affairs, how she takes care of her household. Both of you should be doing that. And you don't need to act as though you're married in order to determine someone's character or to determine a man's ability to lead. You can see that how he interacts in his normal life, how he takes care of business, whether or not he manages business well, whether he handles situation and takes charge and things of that nature. So yeah, so that's what I have to say on that. He ain't your husband, so you're not obligated. He should be acting like your husband, and you should not be acting like his wife in any capacity. Those things are not necessary to determine your compatibility. There should be a clear distinction between a dating relationship and a marital relationship. A dating relationship, the purpose of that, purpose-driven dating, as I talk about, is the time that you take to get to know a person, to determine whether or not you and that person are compatible, to move forward in a relationship, ultimately to a marriage. And what you need is time, and you need to be able to spend time with that person in different settings. If you go out different places, different settings allow for different situations to come about, where you can see how that person interacts and how that person acts in different settings, different scenarios. A person acts different ways, in certain settings. At home you act a certain way. And I'm not saying that you become a different person. There's just different things that we have to do depending on the setting that we're in. There are different things that happen. There are different things that happen in your home that's different than at your work, or if you're out in public and different things like that. You're at home, you let your hair down, you joke around, things like that. When you're in public, you carry yourself in a different manner. Not to say that you can't have fun and things like that, but just different environments call for different things. And then there's also different things that come up that that are not planned, and you just get to see how a person interacts and how they handle situations. And that's the purpose of dating. Not to pretend to be married, not to circumvent the process that we should go through. None of that stuff. Dating is not a trial, a time for trial marriages. And let's just do certain things to see what it would be like if we were married. Because to be honest, it's like a trial pregnancy. You can't have a trial pregnancy. You can carry a baby doll around. You can carry egg around like they've done in some classes had kids do, to kind of see what it's like to have to care for something fragile. Yeah, you get a chance to see what it'd be like to carry an egg around. You're still not going to know what it's like to have a baby until you have one. So there's just other things that you check. You'll check you can determine your patience level and things like that. But you're not going to know what it's like to be married, or at least dating is not marriage practice. It's not that. It's a time for you to get to know a person and start building a foundation. Once you find somebody that you want to move forward in a relationship, you're building a foundation. You're getting a chance to trust a person. You trust them, they trust you. You're getting a chance to, to spend time developing a relationship that should have layers. It's like a foundation that you build upon. You get the foundation right and sturdy, then you'll be able to build something on that's lasting. All right. So that's all I have to say on that one. He ain't your husband. He's not your husband. You don't have to obey him. She ain't your wife. You don't have to pay her bills or other things that a husband and wife would do. All right, so that's what I have to say for that particular question. Thank you for asking it. Follow me at Facebook, Derek Q Sanders, Instagram, Twitter. Check out my YouTube channel. That's where I house all my videos like this one you see here. And like, comment, share. Check out my website, www.derekqsanders.com. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.